Hey folks, here we are for game 2 with the Paradox Engine Arcanis Storm deck. We have 3 different new commanders. We have Selvala, Valduk, and Saskia. Seen all of these around before. And Hypnotank, the Selvala player, is on the play. My hand is pretty unkeepable. It not only is the first play on turn 3 for my hand, but I can't actually make any of those plays. So that seems like a mulligan to me. I definitely have faster starts. So I'm going to try to do that. This hand is also pretty awful. I have the Mox Diamond, which is not great with only 1 land, and then I have Chrome Mox, and I have to bend one of my spells. I have 2 mana that I can make on turn 1, but I have nothing to do after that, so I decided I'm going to ship this back as well. Now this one, I don't really want to go to 5. If I knew my 5-card hand was going to be excellent, I would go to 5, but this hand seems okay. In the first 2 draw steps, if I find a land, then I can get Rhystic Study down on turn 3. Start drawing some more cards to make up for my mulligan. And I also have Trinket Mage here to get like a Mana Crypt or something to catch up on mana if I need to. And then I have this giant spell in the infinite, but I decided I'm just going to keep this one. I'm going to risk it. And I see Time Spiral on top, so I ship it to the bottom. Selvala player plays a land, taps it, passes. Valduk here plays Inventor's Goggles. Interesting card. I think this deck just wants as much equipment as it can get, especially if it's reasonable to play it and equip it, which is only 3 for that one, so that's pretty low for an equipment in general. I draw High Tide, so I really need that land next turn in order to get started. Selvala player plays a Vesuva and copies a mountain. I'm very surprised why he didn't just copy a plains. I don't know what he has in store with that mountain, but it looks like a colorless deck in his, a colorless land in his deck at the moment. And the Valduk player plays another equipment here, the True Faith Sensor, and it's a human, so he gets both bonuses there. The Saskia player plays a land and passes, and I do not draw the land that I desperately needed. Which is pretty unfortunate. The Selvala player runs out their commander. Valduk player runs out their commander. And the Saskia player plays Kodama's Reach, getting their lands set up. Must be nice, have all their lands set up. So I drew a Mox Opal, and so that I did not have to discard, I decided to play it. I think a lot of people would probably concede in this situation, but I don't really like to concede unless I feel like, you know, I absolutely have to, or if it's saving time. Somebody's trying to do Splinter Twin combo and it's clear that they have it, you know. I'm not going to waste time. I'm not about wasting time, but I am about playing it out. So this player has an insane turn, so they're running out Boreal Druid and Greenweaver with the Lightning Greaves, floated mana, played Village Bellringer, and had to arms to untap Selvala. So this is the second or third time they're tapping Selvala. They play a Garruk, Oracle of Moldiah, make some more mana, and then cast Vitalize, untapping all the creatures yet again. So we're all drawing a bunch of cards here too. I mean, I have 11 cards in my hand right now, and this player does as well, and this player has 9. So it's looking like he may win here, though. Who knows what he's doing. Then he plays Nissa, puts a counter on everything, and finally decides to pass the turn. Now I can finally do things. I've drew my second land on how many draw steps is this into my deck now. I'm very happy this person decided to go off, or try to, with Selvala, because I desperately needed those draws in order to get out of this. The Valduk player suits up their commander with the equipment and then attacks everything at Garruk, killing it. The Selvala player chooses not to block anything. Now I'm pretty sure everybody's going to have good plays now because everybody just drew so many cards. This is Hypnotank's library here. The Saskia player plays Rites of Flourishing, which is also great for me, especially if I could find another land somewhere. And then plays Luxodon Warhammer. So my turn, I can finally make mana, and what I want to do here is just get as much mana in play as possible. You can look at this hand for a second and think about how you would sequence these things in order to get the maximum amount of mana in play. But I decided to do this. I play Mana Vault, play Lotus Petal. Now my Mox Opal is online. Tap Mana Vault and Mox Opal to play Felwar Stone. Then I get Trinket Mage in play, go get Mana Crypt, and I finish it all off with Rhystic Study. So I take that back a little. I didn't get the maximum amount of mana in play because I could have played the Mind Stone here, but I got tons of mana sources in play and a Rhystic Study to go ahead and draw some more cards. Because as is, this hand still isn't that great. I need more in order to get something going. Maybe I should have just gone to 5 with that hand, but it was a risk. I took it. Even though I did develop a lot of mana that turn, I still feel like I'm very behind compared to this player. But everybody else is kind of like not doing a whole ton, so maybe I have a chance here. The Selvala player plays a Gideon here, and is choosing to pay for Rhystic Study, which is smart. You should always do that. Goes ahead and cracks it immediately to get the emblem here. And you cannot interact with emblems, so that is there to stay. And pretty sizable force right here of giant creatures. Also played this thing, I missed that. And you can tap 4 untapped creatures to destroy target artifact or enchantment. And he chooses to go after this equipment here. Nothing over here. I would have almost certainly gone for Mana Crypt or Rhystic Study or something along the lines of that, but instead decides to go for the equipment. But they can do whatever they want to do. I don't think that was the best choice. I would have almost certainly gone one of these two down, Mana Crypt or Rhystic Study, depending on what I feel like is going to happen in this game. And then this player, the Valdic player, plays a Blasphemous Act, which I'm obviously not upset about at all. My Trinket Mage died, and this person gets a reset, so seems good to me. At some point in time, this person, Nuts Sack here, discarded a Gisela, and it's going to come up later. When I see names like this, I'm going to go on a small rant real quick. My old name is the same as my YouTube name, which is Raging Poo. I got an email from them, and my account was deactivated because they considered my name to be too offensive. I don't think that Raging Poo is offensive at all, but they asked me to send in 3 potential names, and they would pick one to be my name, and I selected Fantastic and a couple of other names, and they picked Fantastic. But this guy's name is Nutsack. How is that any less offensive than what my name was, Raging Poo? So end rant, but MTGO is pretty ridiculous as far as what they consider to be offensive, and then they let stuff like this slide. Yeah, so the Valdic player plays a Sword of Feast and Famine, does not choose to pay for Rhystic Study, and I draw a card. Actually played both these spells, played something else. Oh, Blasphemous Act, that's right, and did pay, I believe. And then Sword of Feast and Famine and did not pay. Saskia player plays Saskia, pays for Rhystic Study, good man. And then plays Lightning Greaves, and also pays, suiting up their commander with the Lightning Greaves, and the chosen player is Hypno Tank. I believe that's because they have the highest life total right now, but there's more factors at play than what meets the eye. Like, first of all, I have 9 cards in hand. I have more cards in hand than anybody else. That person only has 3 cards in hand. So their life total is not as relevant, but perhaps this person just chose that player because as he's attacking other players, it will slowly be chipping away at that extra life that person has. So here, I draw a couple more cards. I had the option here. This is another important time to think about something. I could have untapped my Mana Vault here to have a guaranteed Enter the Infinite on the next turn with High Tide and tapping all my stuff. But there was a few factors. There was a few things that factored in why I wanted to not untap the Mana Vault. One was if I draw 2 islands this turn, and I can play 2 because of Rites of Flourishing over here. If I drew 2 islands, then I could High Tide Enter the Infinite anyway on this turn. Secondly, if I do brick, which I did yet again, turn 5, and I've drawn a million cards, I've only seen 2 lands, I can play these artifact sources out, and then I will only need 1 island, I think, next turn in order to do High Tide here. So I decided to do that. This is also okay because I drew Swan Song and I can keep up counter magic this rotation. So I play Everflowing Chalice for 2, play Mind Stone, play Sensei's Divining Top, and pass the turn, discarding Walking Atlas, which seems pretty useless right now because I have not drawn a land. I can't draw one to save my life. So the Selvala player takes up the Nissa, puts a plant into play, which is a 1/2 plant because of his emblem. And then plays Selvala, choosing not to pay for Rhystic Study, which I am happy about. Then equips the Lightning Greaves and taps. So everybody draws another card. Plays Avacyn's Pilgrim, again choosing not to pay, which makes me happy because I believe that means that he has more spells that will let me draw more cards. But it's just one more spell. It plays a Harmonize and chooses not to pay, so I get to draw. I pick up a Flusterstorm here, which is great because now I have Swan Song plus Flusterstorm up in case any kind of shenanigans occur this turn cycle. That's decent protection. Flusterstorm and Swan Song are both limited on the ways that they can be useful, but these basically stop the things that win the game. They don't counter creatures. In theory, someone could do a creature-based combo or something like that, but most of the ways in which people win the game will be countered by these 2 spells. So I feel pretty safe. The Valdic player plays a Thran Dynamo and chooses to pay. And a Luxodon Warhammer and chooses to pay. So this person's perfectly content with having their game plan slowed down a little bit to prevent me from drawing cards, which just completely makes sense. I would do the same thing. There are situations where you can kind of make like a tempo play where you're getting way ahead on board really fast, so you just kind of ignore the Rhystic Study and hope that the card advantage never catches up to you. But if you expect the game to go long, then you should never do that because the extra cards will become impactful and you will get buried by the card advantage. So you have to pick your moments with Rhystic Study, like whenever you want to, but generally speaking, you almost always want to pay for it and just have your spells get force spiked, and it's not the end of the world. So I'm setting up here to hopefully have a big turn next turn. This player, the Saskia player, plays Heartless Haidzeku, which is a really interesting card. And he actually goes for a really, really sweet play here. So this person pays to equip the Luxodon Warhammer on the Heartless Haidzeku. This does damage to each player equal to that player's life total, half of it, rounded down. So with lifelink, the damage is mitigated on his end, and he gains life equal to the damage that we've lost this turn. I believe that's right. Or maybe it's 2 players because he hurts himself. No, that breaks even. He hurts himself and then gains it back. And then he hurts us and then gains all the life that would happen here. So equips the Lightning Greaves to go ahead and gain a ton of life and shoot everybody for a considerable amount of damage. But that's not all. This person also chooses to play Reanimate on Gisela. This doubles the amount of damage that would be dealt to opponents. So if I understand this interaction correctly, he wins the game on the spot if he's able to do this. So I decide I'm going to go ahead and Flusterstorm. I believe that player chose to pay for Rhystic Study during the entire course of that, of all the different things that they just did. So and that was also very smart. It was, reduce the likelihood that I would be able to disrupt their combo. But I had it. I had the Flusterstorm thanks to this player, thanks to Selvala. Then he chooses to tap anyway. He goes to 103. We each take a considerable amount of damage. I'm actually have the lowest life total right now. And then that person also chooses to attack me, which deals a little bit of additional damage to Hypnotech over here. And this definitely makes sense why he attacked me, is because I just tried to stop him. So I spin the top here. And I see some cards. It doesn't really matter the order here, but I decided to keep the Chrome Mox. The reason the order doesn't matter is because I'm going to draw my entire library this turn. So that's always nice. Play a couple of lands, play a High Tide, and play Enter the Infinite. So they did not concede immediately, which is nice. So I play Soul Ring, Grim Monolith, Mox Diamond. Now I have enough mana to play Paradox Engine, play a free spell, untap all my stuff. I imprinted Trick Bind, which is unlikely to matter in this game. Now I tap all my stuff, and I go ahead and get an Omniscience in play. I could just play Lab Mana and draw a card, but I always like winning with Aetherflux Reservoir. Yeah, it just seems awesome. So these two players conceded while I was doing this. Then I just play a few spells. I play Archimancer, getting something back. I play Teferi to make sure that nobody can do anything, even though there's only one person left and that person's tapped out. I can't think of a red spell in Magic that would allow you to get out of this situation, even if Teferi wasn't in play. So then I decided to capsize some stuff, buying it back, casting it with Omniscience. One last time, I capsize, and while the capsize is on the stack, I gain enough life and shoot him down with the Aetherflux Reservoir. But obviously I have my whole deck in my hand. I was going to be able to shoot all the players down if I wanted to, or just win with Laboratory Maniac. So that was game 2.